What's going on, everybody? Doc and Sock, we're back. We're jumping into some Rocket League and covering the regional championships that happened this weekend. All of the great action that we have, all my great whiffs. We had some really good matches, really good ones. I'm not gonna say this. I was gonna leave this until kind of the end of the video, but Cloud9, they held up their part of the bargain for me. Looks like my pick is doing okay.
Yeah, half of it at least. Not terrible. Squishy looked really good. Actually, Gimmick looked pretty fantastic for the North American side. We ended up with Cloud9 getting first place, and they actually won that championship game against Ghost, which surprised a lot of folks, myself included. I mean, Ghost did a clean sweep on FlyQuest. But then they actually went up 4-1 on G2. So they actually took out G2, and they're kind of the odd team out. You've got the big three in Europe, in North America. You've got the big three: Cloud9, G2, and NRG. And then Ghost is kind of that fourth odd man out kind of spot, but they really did play really well. I say they're the odd man out, but they did get second in regionals, so that's not shabby, honestly. But G2 continues to kind of be consistently inconsistent. That's the only thing you can kind of count on them to be consistently. That's a little bit of an annoyance for their fans and a struggle for Kronovi and them. They're three really good players, I think, but it's just something about that chemistry, at least defensively. If they struggle at all offensively, they're not going to do well as a team because they do not have that team chemistry on defense, in my humble opinion. But they honestly did not look terrible at points, but it's just you'd like to see a little bit more from them as we approach the LAN and DC.
Gosh dang it. Yeah. You know who really surprised me? I didn't watch every single match, but I watched basically every match that NRG was in, and they really impressed me. We talked this actually on Saturday a little bit as it was going on, and I mean, the 4-0 Rogue is one thing, but then to come, they lose an actually very good match in the semis against Cloud9, where it was like games were back and forth. I think Cloud9 took the first one, they really poured it on, and then it's like NRG came back in the second game and basically did the reverse and poured it on Cloud9. And then the rest of the games from there were really close games, to be honest. And then they just took it to G2 in that third place essentially match, which was really awesome. So I'm really impressed, and I'm really looking forward to see kind of what they do with that third place slot. That obviously helps out, because it just means that they just better seeds are always the better way to go. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Well, and that's something that we brought up, and we can kind of transition. I mean, I'm always a big fan of NRG. Garrett is fantastic. Pardon me. I think Fireburner is one of the most underrated players on the planet, and Jacob is he's a great dude and a really cool player to watch. But a big fan of them. But the big thing that we talked about is with NA doing their regional championships first, we actually had some questions on whether or not Europe would be keeping their matchups in mind when they were getting their placements done. So there was kind of some talk about some throwing and all that with some teams and all that. It's interesting to see. There is still a little bit that has to be handled out of OCE before we know for sure who's all doing what and all that stuff, if I'm not mistaken. So we can kind of cover that as the week goes on. But I think Europe was kind of a similar thing. We had, for the most part, not really a ton of surprises depending on who you're talking to. Flipside failed to make LAN in if I'm not mistaken, for the first time. It at least since we've had the big three, even though that third spot has changed from Greasy to Mystic. It's not really honestly surprising. Flipside has not played terribly well throughout this league play, and the actual question for what the problem is it seems like a hard one to answer because generally when you have these big two combos like we had with Remco and Maestro and that we've had with Markey and Cooks, it's kind of hard to look at them as potentially the problem. It's usually the third person that's kind of pointed at it initially. Mystic is fantastic. I don't think Mystic is the problem with that team. I think there's a couple things that's kind of gone into that. I think Cooks has not been the same since the Batmobile was changed, and I don't think Markey's been the same this year, period. So there's kind of a lot of talk and a lot of discussion that I've seen so far on kind of questioning Markey's future with this game, or maybe even with the team. I've been saying for a long time that Scrub Killa will be on that team, but I think he's got another full season before he can join. So he'll be at RLCS season 6.
Yeah, that is really good. Europe actually was as exciting as the NA was. Europe was equally as exciting, if not more exciting, with the fact of we have the first, I think, ever reverse sweep in the regionals, if I'm not mistaken, which was Maka and PSG, was it not?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Well, for the third and fourth place spots, which was awesome. That match was just insane, and Maka really showing off some pretty good talent there too.
Oh man, Pesci was amazing.
He was.
Pesci at one point, I think the first series, Maka had 13 goals and Pesci had 7 of them.
Yeah.
And it really felt like that consistently throughout the day. Pesci was just super super strong, and actually in that series, PSG is up 3-2, or I'm sorry, it was 3-3 because it was Game 7. Game 7, Mockett scores a 0-second goal to put it into overtime. I mean, just you can't get much more exciting than that. Super great. If you have a chance to go back and check out the VODs. They are put out on YouTube a couple days after. I think it's usually by like Tuesday or Wednesday. They're put up on YouTube and stuff, so you can watch the whole thing from wire to wire. Definitely worth a watch, at least that series. So, there's some folks kind of half joking but half actually wondering, was PSG throwing at a certain point to get a more favorable matchup? It's tough to tell, but I will say I've not seen PSG play that sloppy in quite some time, or ever, I guess I should say, since their brand spanking new.
Yeah, they got pretty well handled by Gale Force in their semifinal match, and then to come into that game and then have that happen to them. To say that they played bad Rocket League during that series is a huge understatement, because they didn't. But the fact that they just didn't, they couldn't close it. They got close to closing it a couple times and just couldn't close it out. Even the goal that finished the series and won it for Mock, it was, it wasn't anything special. It wasn't anything fancy. It was almost like just a little bit of a breakdown. And I don't know. So it was a great series, though. I'm going to be honest, out of Europe, nobody really surprised me. I honestly thought Method would play a little bit better in the finals than they did. But I mean, still good. I think they deserve the place in the rank that they ended up getting. And it'll be really interesting to see how all those matches unfold. Nice save. Throughout the rest of the series and the rest of the championships. And lot of good teams going to LAN too. A lot of good teams.
Yeah, and I think I skipped over an important step. We talked about the teams for NA, but I don't think we talked about them from Europe. So it ended up being Method, PSG, Mocket, and Gale Force. And Gale Force won over Method in the championship game.
Yep.
Am I thinking that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah. Long day. So Gale Force ended up taking it. It's actually been really interesting to see Gale Force perform in these high pressure situations. As they, they won the Universal Open, and now they're the top seed in Europe right now. But honestly, I don't put a ton of stock into the seedings of these teams, because it's a double elimination tournament, and it's at a certain point you almost have to play everybody, just kind of the way that double elimination is set up. So don't put a ton of stock in it. But the teams that are actually going, like you said, I think we anticipated those teams making it.
Right. Yeah. No real surprises there. Obviously, with really who ended up just being where they were and the seeds that they were at. But like I said, some just a few surprises, just basically on how they played during that, and it'll be really interesting to see LAN.
Yep, and we can't forget about OCE. I kind of mentioned them earlier, but they'll be doing a very similar deal like they did last season. So they'll have their top 2 teams come in. We'll kind of have our play-in type games, and we'll go from there. So it'll be really interesting to see. I don't know if the RLRS will have some type of representation there, not in terms of teams, but actually playing, but kind of just a presence in some other way. I think would be really cool.
That was a no-talk fake, by the way, which was pretty awesome.
Well, it happens. The best part was the finish, where we pass it back upfield, and Kev beans the boost and isn't able to take the shot because he doesn't have boost. It's all gonna come out in the end. It's all gonna come out in the wash. It works. That fake though.
That was beautiful.
What a fake.
That's beautiful. So that'll wrap it up. As always, in the description below, we'll do the link for RLCS, so you guys can take a look. They've got a pretty cool write-up for the whole thing, covering all the different matches. You can obviously take a look and see how everything was. And then also check out the bracket and see how everything unfolded. But just a quick look again, a lot of good Rocket League action as usual. I didn't get anything for fan rewards, so I don't want to talk about it. But apparently they're on and they're still working. Maybe I need to check mine and make sure that they are linked, because they probably aren't at this point.
Couldn't hurt, right?
Yeah, I mean the fact that I get nothing or decals. Maybe they took everything else but decals out. Who knows? But yeah, like I said, a lot of good Rocket League action. Just a quick video chatting through that stuff, and yeah, we'll have more to come as the week unfolds. We'll get the schedule up for what's coming the next couple weeks. LAN is in Washington D.C., which is pretty cool as well. So we'll have that, and yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Lost any last words for the people?
That's it, guys. I appreciate everything. Oh, except for when you push the passes too far. We really appreciate it. It's going to be a fantastic LAN. I can already feel it at this point. We have so many strong teams. So let us know if you're going to LAN, that kind of thing. That would be really cool. I'm super jelly. If you are, take me with you.
Yes. As always, Doc and Sloth, Average Gamer guys, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with us. If you liked all that stuff that we talked about, like the channel, subscribe. It's probably good for you. I don't know. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you in the